A poor peasant girl finds a prince in the dump, and their lives change forever. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. They called it the edge of the world, though it was only the edge of London. Emily moved through the heaps with her basket on her arm, the damp morning clinging to her clothes. Bits of smoke drifted from distant chimneys, but here the air smelled of rot and ash. Her boots sank a little with each step. She listened to the usual sounds, a cart creaking by on the lane, a gull shrieking overhead, scrap pickers calling to one another as they searched. "Emily, you're late," a man's voice barked. She turned. Mr. Brooks, who bought what the poor brought and sold it on for profit, stood near his shed, arms crossed. His coat was patched, but better than anything Emily owned. His narrow eyes ran over her empty basket. "I'm not late, sir," she said. "The church bell just rang 7. 7 or 7:30, she could not tell, but if she admitted doubt, he would scold her longer. "Empty already?" he sniffed. "You think I'll pay you for the air in that basket?" "I've not finished looking yet," she replied, holding his gaze for a moment before lowering it. "I thought to see if you needed anything sorted first." He waved a hand sharply. "I need coin. I need things I can sell. Bent spoons, bits of china, not your excuses. Off with you." "Yes, sir." She turned away, cheeks burning. Behind him, near the shed, other girls were already sorting through yesterday's haul, picking out rags fit for paper-making, bones for glue. Emily heard one of them whisper to another, "That one will end in the workhouse with that temper." "Shh, she'll hear." Emily heard. She always heard. She drew her shawl tighter and walked farther into the dump, where the piles rose taller and the ground turned uneven. Here the rubbish lay in mounds, broken crates, straw bottles, old shoes. Anything that might once have had a place in someone's house now lay here, stripped of worth. Her mother used to say gently, "We are not what we stand upon." It had sounded lovely then. Her mother was gone now, and the words felt thin. Emily knelt beside a promising heap and began to dig. Her fingers moved quickly, trained by years. An old cup, cracked but not shattered. Perhaps worth a penny, a bent fork she could straighten, a bit of fabric that might still serve as a patch. Behind her, someone laughed. "Careful, Emily," a boy called. "If you dig any deeper, you'll fall out of the world." She glanced over her shoulder and managed a small smile. It was only Tom, 12 years old and always grinning despite the mud on his face. "If I fall," she said, "I'll send you a message to say what's on the other side. Maybe it's clean," he replied, widening his eyes. "Imagine that. Clean and quiet. No Mr. Brooks." They shared a quick laugh. Tom wandered on, whistling, kicking a broken bottle out of his path. Emily bent her head again to her work, her hands moving almost without thought. The dump was large, stretching near to the river, and she knew it as others knew neat streets and respectable houses. She knew where the better rubbish tended to land, where the richer parts of town sent their cast-offs. She also knew where men sometimes gathered at night with flasks and dark talk, and she avoided those places. Today a thin mist lay over everything, blurring the heaps into strange shapes. Emily walked farther than usual, chasing the hope of something good, something that might mean more than a crust of bread by evening. She was almost ready to turn back when she saw it. At first it looked like nothing at all. A collapsed pile of cloth, a torn sack, a shadow between two heaps. She might have passed it, but a movement caught the corner of her eye. She stopped. No one else was near. The nearest voice was distant, someone haggling with a rag buyer. Emily slowly stepped closer, her heart beating faster without knowing why. "Is someone there?" she called softly. No answer. The wind stirred a strip of paper. It fluttered down again. Emily approached the bundle of cloth. It lay half buried under broken slats of wood and old straw, as if tossed aside in haste. She saw a glimpse of a hand. Not a grubby, calloused hand used to carrying coal or lifting barrels, but a pale hand with long fingers, the nails clean even beneath a smear of dirt. Emily's breath caught. She set her basket aside and knelt down. Carefully, she pulled away a broken crate, then a tangle of rope. The cloth beneath was not rough sackcloth, but a fine, torn coat. The man beneath it lay on his side, his face turned away. "Sir?" she whispered. He did not move. Emily reached out and touched his shoulder. The fabric beneath her fingers was of a quality she had never owned. She shook him gently. "Sir, can you hear me?" He rolled slightly with the movement, and she saw his face. He was young, not a boy, but not old either, perhaps in his early 20s. His hair, dark and matted with dust, fell across his forehead. His features were strong and clear under the grime, his jaw shadowed as if he had not shaved for several days. His eyes remained closed, lashes motionless. Emily pressed her fingers to his neck, just as she had done once with a sick dog. Warm skin, a slow, steady pulse. He was alive. "Sir," she said again, louder, "you must wake. You can't stay here." Still no response. She looked around. No one had noticed her yet. No one saw the fine coat hidden amid the rubbish. If they did, someone would shout, would call others, would ask questions. In a place like this, a man with clothes like that meant trouble. Emily swallowed. She should fetch help, she thought. She should run to Mr. Brooks or to the constable who sometimes walked the lane. She should tell them that a man lay here unconscious, dressed like a gentleman in the middle of a dump. But she could hear what they would say. "What were you doing near him, girl? Did you go through his pockets then? How came he here if not by some mischief of yours?" Her empty cottage, the thin blanket on her bed, the constant threat of the workhouse, all of it flashed through her mind. If she brought them here and matters grew complicated, they would not believe her word over his clothes. Or worse, if he woke and accused her of stealing from him, who would they believe? She drew back a little, heart pounding. She could walk away. She could leave him as she had found him. Someone else might discover him, or no one might. The rubbish heaps swallowed more than people liked to admit. The thought made her stomach twist. She imagined him lying here as night fell, the air turning colder, his chest rising more slowly. She imagined Tom wandering by and leaving in fright. She imagined waking tomorrow to whispers that a dead gentleman had been found among the refuse, and knowing she had walked away. Emily took a breath and leaned closer again. "Sir, if you hear me, I mean you no harm," she said, as if he could understand. "I have nothing worth taking. I live by the edge of this place. I can drag you there, at least, where you'll be out of sight until you wake." He did not answer. A faint sound escaped his lips, but it was no word she knew. She pushed away the last of the broken wood and straw, exposing more of his coat. The fabric was torn at the sleeve, revealing a linen shirt underneath. Near his collar, where the grime thinned, she saw fine stitching, a small emblem half hidden, a crown perhaps, or some intricate crest. She did not recognize it. Her hands shook. "Emily, you fool," she whispered to herself. "You'll bring ruin on your own head." She stood, looked around once more, then bent and hooked her arms under his. He was heavier than he looked. She dragged him inch by inch, his boots leaving marks in the dirt. Her back ached. Twice she had to stop and catch her breath, listening for footsteps. At one of those pauses, a voice called from the distance. "Emily, where are you?" "Tom." She recognized his tone. She stiffened. "I'm here," she yelled back, her voice high and strained. "Far side. Found some old crates." "Bring them to Brooks. He's in a temper," he shouted. Then his voice faded as he moved away. Emily let out a long breath and resumed her work. The man's head lolled against her shoulder. A lock of dark hair brushed her cheek. She tried not to think about who he might be or what would happen if he died in her care. Her shelter stood near the far edge of the dump, against a low, crumbling wall. It was little more than a lean-to patched together from broken boards and canvas, big enough for one person to stretch out if they did not mind a draught. A few times, when the weather turned especially harsh, she had slept there rather than in the small room she rented, because it put her closer to the morning's first pickings. Reaching it now felt like walking to the gallows. "Just a little farther," she muttered, though he could not hear. She dragged him behind the shelter first, out of sight of the main path. Then she eased him inside, arranging his body as carefully as she could on the bundle of old sacks that served as a bed. He groaned once but did not wake. She stood over him, breathing hard. Up close he looked even more out of place. His skin was paler than any dock worker's, his hands uncalloused. His cheek bore a faint bruise, but not one that looked like a blow, more like the mark of having lain against something hard. She saw no cuts, no obvious injuries. He looked like a gentleman who had fallen asleep at the theatre and woken on a rubbish heap. "What am I to do with you?" she whispered. For a long moment, the only answer was the distant rumble of carriage wheels on the main road. Her stomach growled gently, reminding her that she had eaten nothing that morning. She glanced at her basket, the cracked cup, the bent fork, the bit of cloth. If she did not bring something to Mr. Brooks soon, he would dock her later. "I'll be quick," she said, as if explaining herself. "I'll go and come back. If you wake, you stay quiet. You hear?" The shelter did not reply. She stepped out, glanced around, and pulled the ragged curtain of canvas down over the entrance. It would not keep out rain, but it might keep out curious eyes. Then she picked up her basket and walked back toward the heaps, forcing herself to move with her usual pace. All day she worked with one ear turned toward the far edge. She sorted rags for the other girls, took a handful of bent nails to Mr. Brooks, endured his grumbling over their small value. Twice she caught Tom watching her with narrowed eyes, as if he sensed her distraction. "You look queer," he said at midday. "You sick?" "I'm well enough," she lied. "Just tired." "You should eat more. You're thin as a broom." She smiled faintly. "Find me the food, then." He shrugged and ran off, chasing a rumor of discarded bread near the tavern. By late afternoon, the fog had lifted, leaving the sky a flat grey. The air turned colder. Emily's thoughts circled back again and again to the man in her shelter. What if he had woken and tried to stand, tearing the canvas aside for all to see? What if he had stopped breathing while she bartered over a chipped plate? Finally, when the shadows lengthened, she could bear it no longer. She made an excuse to Mr. Brooks about needing to fetch more rags from the far side and hurried away, clutching the 2 small crusts she had saved from lunch. Her heart hammered as she neared the shelter. It looked unchanged, the canvas still hung in place. No one lingered nearby. She slipped inside. The man lay as she had left him, though his hand had shifted, fingers curled near his chest. His face seemed less ashen. His lips were not quite as colorless. Emily crouched beside him. "Sir?" she whispered. "Can you hear me?" His eyelids twitched. She froze. He drew in a deeper breath, as if surfacing from underwater. His hand moved again. Slowly, his eyes opened. They were a clear grey, unfocused at first, then sharpening as they found her face. For a moment, he simply stared, confusion clouding his gaze. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice rough as if unused. "You're on the edge of London," Emily said. "By the dump." "The dump," he repeated, as though the word puzzled him. "I found you there this morning," she went on, speaking quickly before she lost her nerve. "Among the rubbish. You were half buried. I thought you might be dead. Dead." His brow furrowed. He raised a hand to his temple, winced, and let it fall again. I remember being in a carriage. Then darkness. Then nothing." Emily shifted uneasily. "You must have been left there." "I saw no carriage, no one else, just you." He looked down at his coat, at the torn sleeve. His fingers brushed the fabric with a faint expression of disbelief. "This is not possible," he murmured. "Are you hurt anywhere?" she asked. "I saw no blood. Do you feel pain?" "Only in my head." He closed his eyes briefly. "And my pride." She hesitated, then held out one of the crusts of bread. "I saved this," she said. "It isn't much. You should eat." He opened his eyes again and blinked at the bread, then at her. Something softened in his expression. "You are very kind," he said quietly. "You did not have to help me." She shrugged, suddenly shy. "I could not leave you lying there. That is all." He pushed himself up on his elbows, moving slowly, as if every gesture required effort. The low roof of the shelter forced him to bow his head. "What is your name?" he asked. "Emily. Emily Carter." "Emily," he repeated, tasting the syllables as if they might anchor him to the world. I am called Alexander." He said it simply, yet as if the name meant something more than any ordinary man's. Emily nodded. The name meant nothing to her on its own. Alexander could be anyone. He took the bread from her hand carefully, as though afraid to snatch it. He held it a moment before taking a small bite. He chewed slowly, his throat working, his eyes closing briefly with each swallow. Watching him, Emily realized he might not be used to being hungry. She ate her own crust more quickly, stuffing it into her mouth between sentences. "How long were you there?" she asked when he finished. I do not know, he admitted. You say you found me this morning? Yes, and today is Thursday, she said. At least it was yesterday. I heard the church bells last night. Thursday, he repeated. His gaze drifted, unfocused. Then I have been gone for days, weeks perhaps. Gone from where? He looked back at her, and for the first time she saw something like fear behind his eyes. From the palace, he said. The word hung in the cramped space. Emily laughed softly before she could stop herself. The palace, she echoed. Truly? He held her gaze unoffended. Truly? You mean the royal palace? Where the king lives? Yes. Why would you be there? She asked, then felt foolish. Were you a servant? A guest? His eyes darkened, not with anger but with a kind of weary surprise, as if he had not imagined such a question. I was born there, he said. I have never lived anywhere else. She stared at him. Born there, she repeated slowly. He nodded. You expect me to believe that? She asked, though her voice had lost some of its skepticism. The fine cloth, the clean hands, the crest on his collar, they all pressed at her mind. I expect nothing, he said quietly. You have already given me more than I deserved, but whether you believe it or not, it is the truth. Emily shifted, hugging her knees. If you lived in the palace, she said, how did you come to lie in a rubbish heap? His mouth tightened. He looked down at his hands. I do not know everything, he said. I recall a day like any other, and then a change. Voices speaking softly where they should not, doors closing, a carriage sent out at night. He shook his head, as if forcing away a deeper recollection. Then I woke to your voice. No one hurt you? She asked quickly. No one struck you? He hesitated, then shook his head again. No, no blows. Only absence. Emily was not sure what that meant, but she let it rest. Why did no one come looking for you? She asked. If you are from the palace, surely someone would miss you. Oh, they will miss me, he said steadily. That I am certain of. Whether all of them wish me safely found is another question entirely. She did not like the sound of that. She thought of men in uniforms, of stern faces, of questions she could not answer. If you are from there, she said slowly, then I ought to fetch someone to take you back. A guard, a coachman, someone. No, he said at once, his hand shooting out to catch her wrist. His grip was not harsh, but it stopped her as surely as a rope. I beg you, do not, he said. Not yet. I do not know whom to trust. I do not even know how I came here. Until I remember more, I would rather stay where I am. In a dump? She asked, incredulous. In your care, he corrected gently. Her cheeks warmed. You should not say such things, she muttered. You don't know me. I know enough, he replied. You found a stranger and chose to help him. That tells me a great deal. She pulled her hand from his, flustered. I did what anyone would have done. His faint smile told her he did not believe that. She turned away, fiddling with the edge of a sack. If I keep you here, she said, and someone finds out, they'll say I had no right. They'll think I kept you to myself for some wicked reason. They always think the worst of us here. Then they are fools, he said softly. That changes nothing. She shook her head. Mr. Brooks watches us. The constable comes by. If they see you, I'll be blamed for whatever happened, whether I did it or not. He was silent a moment. If you send for them, he said at last, and if by chance the same hands that abandoned me are among those who come, what then? Do you think they will thank you for your honesty? Or will they simply remove the one witness who might say they left me among the refuse? Her mouth went dry. You speak of ugly things, sir, she whispered. Ugly things are easier to believe when one looks at me lying in a heap of rubbish, he replied. I do not say this to frighten you. I say it because I would not have you hand me over to those who may wish me gone. Emily rubbed her arms, suddenly cold despite the cramped shelter. If I hide you, she said, I am in danger. Yes, he said quietly. I fear you are. She looked at him sharply. And you ask it of me still? No, he held her gaze. I ask nothing. You have already taken great risk. I can only tell you the truth as I know it, and accept whatever you decide. She stared at the canvas wall, at the faint outline of daylight beyond. Her life had been simple in its hardship. She rose, she picked, she bartered, she slept. No one expected anything of her. No one trusted her with anything important. Now here lay a man who claimed to have been born in the palace, who spoke as no one she had ever known spoke, whose very presence in her shelter could ruin her. And he said he would accept her decision. She thought of walking away, of slipping through the canvas and never returning, of letting the world do as it pleased with him. Her mother's voice whispered in memory. "We are not what we stand upon," she had said, "nor what others throw away." Emily let out a slow breath. "I will not turn you out," she said at last. "Not yet. You may stay here for a little while. I will bring what food I can spare, but if anyone asks, I'll have to lie, and I'm not very good at it." "Thank you," he said, the words full and sincere. "You should rest now," she said brusquely, uncomfortable with his gratitude. "I must go back before they notice I'm gone. Lie down." He obeyed, lowering himself carefully onto the sacks. He winced once as his head touched the rough fabric, but then he settled, folding his hands on his chest like a weary traveler. She moved to pull the canvas aside. "Emily," he said suddenly. She looked back. "If it is safe," he said, "tell me more of this place, of your life. I know so little of the world beyond the palace walls. It seems I should learn, if I hope to rule it well." She frowned. "If you hope to what?" He paused, as if he had said too much. She studied him. The name Alexander, the coat, the crest, the way he spoke of the palace, not as a visitor, but as one who belonged there, the way he used the word rule as if it fit him. Something cold and astonishing slid through her. "Who are you?" she whispered. He held her gaze steadily, and for the first time since waking, his eyes were entirely clear. "You must help me," he said, his voice low but firm, "for I am the prince." And then his eyes rolled back, and he fell limp against the mattress of rags. For a moment Emily thought he had died. "Sir? Alexander?" She dropped to her knees beside him. "Prince or no, you must not do that," she muttered, her heart thudding. He lay limp, chest rising and falling in a slow, steady rhythm. His pulse beat under her fingers, not strong but regular. "You frighten people," she said under her breath. "That is what you do, Prince." The words swirled in her mind like smoke. It was impossible. It was foolish. It was something boys said when they played at King's. And yet, her eyes slipped to the ragged edge of his collar. Carefully, she drew the torn fabric aside. There, half hidden by grime, gleamed a small metal pin worked into the stitching. She wiped it with her thumb. A crown, 3 points. A tiny lion beneath. She jerked her hand back as if burned. "No," she whispered. "No, no." Her whole body wanted to laugh, or cry, or run out into the dump and shout to everyone that a madman with a crown on his coat lay in her shelter. Instead, she sat back on her heels and looked at him. His face, even slack in unconsciousness, carried a kind of quiet authority. Not arrogance, exactly, more like the habit of being heard when he spoke. There was a faint line between his brows, as if even in sleep he worried. "You cannot be the prince," she told him firmly. "Princes do not end in rubbish heaps. They sit in chairs and have people bring them things on trays." He did not argue. His breathing deepened. The shelter felt suddenly very small. Outside, someone shouted. Laughter followed. The world went on. Emily pressed her hands over her face for a moment, then dropped them. "Very well," she said. "Prince or chimney sweep, you are my problem for now." She shifted him a little higher on the sacks, tucking the thin blanket under his chin. Then she crawled out through the canvas and stepped into the fading light. The dump looked the same as it always had. Men and women picking, children running. Smoke from Mr. Brooks's pipe rising near his shed. The ordinary noise soothed her. Perhaps she had imagined everything. Still, she walked with new care. All that evening she moved between heaps, finishing her work, trading a few fines for a bowl of thin stew from a neighbor. She pretended to listen to Tom's stories of a dog that had followed him for half an hour, but her thoughts kept slipping back to the shelter. "Are you listening?" Tom demanded. "Yes," she said. "What did I say then?" "You said the dog had 1 ear," she guessed. "It had 2 ears. It was not a monster." He squinted at her. "You are queer today." "I am tired, Tom. We all get tired." He shrugged and gulped down the last of his stew. "If you fall into the dump in your sleep, I will not drag you out," he said cheerfully. She managed to smile. "You would miss me." "Perhaps a little," he admitted. By the time she finally slipped away, the sky was dim. Lanterns flickered near Mr. Brooks's shed. Emily made sure no one watched her and hurried to the shelter. Inside, it smelled of damp canvas and old straw. Alexander had not moved much. His brow shone with a thin sheen of sweat. "You are supposed to be a prince," she said, laying the back of her hand against his forehead. "You should at least wake up when spoken to." He felt warm. Not burning, but warmer than before. She dipped a rag in the small jug of water she kept there and wrung it out over his lips. A few drops slipped between them. He swallowed reflexively. "That is something," she murmured. She wiped his face with gentle strokes, clearing away some of the grime. Underneath, his skin was paler than she liked. Purple shadows pooled under his eyes. "You had better not die here," she warned. "I have enough trouble." He made a faint sound, something like a sigh. For a long time she sat there, listening to his uneven breaths. Outside, the noises of the dump faded, replaced by the distant clop of hooves and the low murmur of the city beyond. She should go back to her own small room, but the thought of leaving him alone, feverish and helpless, would not let her move. At last she stretched out on the floor beside the sacks, wrapped in her shawl. The ground was hard. The canvas flapped once as the wind shifted. "Prince," she whispered into the dark. "Oh, Emily, you are foolish." Sleep crept over her anyway. She woke to someone saying her name. "Emily, Emily!" Her eyes flew open. Light seeped through a gap in the canvas. Her neck ached. "Yes?" she mumbled, then realized the voice was too close, too refined to be anyone outside. She turned her head. Alexander was watching her. He was propped up on one elbow, the blanket gathered around his shoulders. The feverish sheen had lessened. His eyes were clearer, though still tired. "You sleep on the floor," he said quietly. "I sleep wherever I must," she replied, pushing herself upright. "How do you feel?" "As if I had been made into a parcel and thrown about," he said wryly. "But better than before, I think." She reached for the jug. "Drink." He took the cup she offered and sipped, then drank more deeply. Water dripped down his chin. He wiped it away absently. "Thank you," he said, "for this, and for yesterday, and for everything." "It is nothing," she muttered. "It is not nothing." His gaze was steady. "You could have left me there." "I nearly did," she confessed. "What stopped you?" "I do not know." She shifted, uncomfortable. "Perhaps I have no sense." He smiled a little. "Then I am grateful for your lack of sense." She busied herself with straightening the blanket. "You caused quite a stir in my head," she said, "talking of palaces and princes." "I remember saying that," he murmured. "I thought I was dreaming, or perhaps I hoped to be." "So you were not raving?" she asked. "You meant it?" He drew in a slow breath. "Yes," he said, "I meant it." She sat back on her heels. "Say it plainly." He looked at her, unflinching. "My name is Alexander James Edmund," he said. "I am the only son of King Robert. Until very recently, I was heir to the throne." The little shelter seemed to tilt. Emily grabbed the nearest board. "You are the prince," she whispered. "Yes." She shook her head. "You cannot be." "You have said that already," he replied gently. "You live in rooms with walls of stone," she insisted. "Servants bring you food on silver plates. You do not wake in sheds with holes in the roof." "At present I do," he said dryly. "This is madness," she said. "Likely," he agreed. "Yet here we are." She stared at him a moment longer, then let out a shaky laugh. "You lie well if you lie," she said. "We have no kings in the dump, so I cannot say." "What would convince you?" he asked. "Nothing you can do here," she replied. "Only time and what I hear outside, perhaps." He considered that. "What do people say in the streets?" he asked. "About the palace? About me?" "I do not go to the streets," she said. "I stay here. I go to Mr. Brooks. I sleep in a room the size of a cupboard. That is my world." "You have never seen the palace," he said softly. "Only from far away," she answered. "Once. When I was little, my father pointed to it and said, 'That is where they decide things for us. Do not expect them to think of you much.' Then he died, and my mother said we would think of ourselves instead." He listened in silence. "I have not thought of you," she said bluntly. I did not know your name. That is my fault, not yours, he replied. A ruler should be known by his people. You are not a ruler yet, she said. Perhaps I am not anything at all now, he murmured. She looked at him sharply. What do you mean? If I have been gone for weeks, he said slowly, there will be stories, rumors. Some will say I am dead. Some will say I ran away. Some will say worse. And if you return, she asked. Then there will be questions, he said. How did I come to vanish from a palace surrounded by guards? Who failed? Or who succeeded, depending on their wish? You speak as if someone wanted you gone, she said. His jaw clenched. I fear that may be true. How? She pressed. No one harmed you. You said there were no blows, no weapons. He nodded. No open violence, only soft words, quiet plans. There are many ways to remove someone, Emily. Not all of them leave marks. She shivered. Why would anyone want that? Power, he said simply. If I am in the way of someone's ambition, it may seem convenient to lose me. A prince, she said, thrown away like a broken plate. His gaze flicked to her. You know what happens to broken plates. They end here, she answered. Yes, he said. They do. Silence settled between them for a moment. Whether I believe you or not, she said at last, it does not change what I must do. You cannot stay like this. You need food and proper clothes, and to see what is being said of you. You will help me? He asked. She hesitated. You are already here, she said. If I throw you out now, I will only be sending you back to the rubbish. That seems unkind for a prince. His shoulders relaxed a fraction. Your kindness will cost you, Emily. It always does, she said, but I will try to be careful. You must stay hidden. Do not go wandering. Do not call out. If you hear voices, lie still and say nothing. I understand, he said. She rose to her feet. I must go. If I do not show my face, they will ask why. I will listen. I will see if anyone speaks of a missing prince. And I will bring what food I can. He looked up at her. You will come back. It was not a question. It was something like hope. Yes, she said. I will come back. When she stepped out of the shelter, the light struck her eyes. The dump had grown busier. Word had evidently passed that a new load of rubbish had been brought from the center of the city. People moved quickly, picking through the fresh heaps. Emily forced herself into the flow. She kept her hands moving, her ears open. Snatches of gossip floated around her. Did you hear about the fire by the docks? They say the baker's wife ran off with a soldier. Poster in the square. Big reward. She froze. What reward? She asked the woman beside her, trying to sound idle. For information about the prince, the woman replied without looking up. Have you been under a rock? I stay here, Emily said. Well, they want him back. The woman snorted. Or say they do. Posters everywhere in the city. His face, his name, a promise of coin to anyone who can say where he's gone. Emily's mouth went dry. Gone? Missing for weeks, they say, the woman went on. Some say he fell in the river. Some say he ran off with a lady. Some say he's hiding because he doesn't want to be king. I say it's all nonsense. Princes do not go missing. Other people go missing. We do. Who offers the reward? Emily asked. The palace. Who else? The woman laughed. Maybe you'll find him here among the bones, eh? Then you'll be rich. Emily managed a thin smile and turned away. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Missing for weeks. Reward posters. The palace itself asking for news. She worked until midday, her hands clumsy from distraction. When she took a few bits of metal to Mr. Brooks, he eyed her sharply. You're slow today, he complained. Your mind wandering? I am only tired, she said. You've been tired all week. He leaned closer. You're not hiding something pretty for yourself, are you? I've had a feeling about you. I have nothing, she said flatly. He grunted. See that it stays so. If I find you've kept something from me, you'll be out. No more work. And then where will you go? She said nothing. He waved her away. As she turned, she nearly collided with a man in a dark coat standing behind her. He stepped back smoothly, and she saw the polished buttons on his chest, the neat line of his collar. His boots were dusty but well made. His hair was oiled and combed. Careful, he said mildly. Sorry, sir, she muttered. Mr. Brooks straightened quickly. Morning, Mr. Hale. The man nodded. Mr. Brooks. Emily recognized the name. Hale was steward to Mr. Weatherby, who owned much of the land hereabouts. Hale's word carried weight. When he walked past, people straightened their backs. What brings you here? Brooks asked, all smiles now. Duty, Hale replied. He glanced around the dump, expression unreadable. There have been questions from the city. The prince's disappearance has everyone restless. The constable believes it wise to ask in all corners, to see if anyone has seen anything unusual. Unusual? Brooks laughed too loudly. Sir, this place is nothing but usual rubbish. Hale's gaze fell on Emily. It lingered. And this girl? He asked. Is she usual? Emily? Oh, she's no trouble, Brooks said quickly. Works hard enough when she's not wool gathering. Hale stepped closer. What is your name? He asked. Emily Carter, she said. Her voice came out small. You live nearby? He asked. Yes, sir. Down the lane, by the old wall. Alone? I rent a room, she said. There are others in the house. And you are here every day? He went on. From early until late? Yes, sir. Have you seen anyone new around? He asked. Any gentleman where he should not be? Any strangers hiding among the heaps? Her heart stumbled. No, sir, she said. He studied her face. You are sure? He pressed. I see only people like me, she replied. We do not draw gentlemen here. Mr. Brooks chuckled. That's true enough. Hale did not smile. He looked toward the heaps, narrow eyes scanning. Behind him, a uniformed constable strode into view, his truncheon hanging at his side, his expression serious. He joined them with a nod. This is where you said, Mr. Hale? The constable asked. Yes, Hale said. If someone wished to hide, this would be a convenient place. Not for long, the constable said. Folk here would sell their own grandmothers for a reward. Hale's gaze returned to Emily. If you do see anything, he said, you will tell Mr. Brooks. He will tell me. The palace is generous to those who help. Her mouth felt dry. Yes, sir. Good. He inclined his head slightly, as if she were a servant in some hallway, then turned to confer with the constable. Emily backed away, her legs unsteady. She almost ran into Tom, who appeared at her elbow. What did he want? Tom demanded. Nothing, she said quickly. Tom peered around her. They're looking for the prince, you know. Everyone says so. Imagine him here with us. Would you bow if you saw him? I would not bow. I'd make him bow to me. Do not say such things, she hissed. Someone will hear. He laughed and darted off again. Emily forced herself to keep working, though her hands shook. Every time she bent to lift a broken plate, she felt the steward's gaze on her back, even when he had moved away. Hours passed. Hale and the constable spoke with several workers, then walked among the heaps, eyes sharp. Once, Hale disappeared down the lane that led toward her rented room, and her breath stopped until she saw him return. They did not come near the far wall. Not yet. By late afternoon, Emily could bear it no longer. She waited until Hale turned to examine a cartload of rubbish, then slipped away, keeping low, moving between heaps. Her path to the shelter felt longer than usual. Every sound made her flinch. When she ducked through the canvas, Alexander was sitting up, his back against the boards. You are pale, he said at once. What has happened? She dropped to a crouch. They are looking for you, she whispered. His jaw tightened. Who? A steward from a great house and the constable. They spoke of the palace. They said there are posters in the city with your face. That was to be expected, he said. Is that all? They asked about strangers, she went on. They asked if I had seen any gentleman where he should not be. They looked at me as if I'd hidden you in my pocket. If they find you here, they will say I lied. They will say I kept you away to bargain. He leaned forward. Did anyone follow you? I do not think so, she said, but I cannot be sure. Mr. Hale, the steward, he watches everything. His eyes are like hooks. He mused a moment. Do you trust him? I do not trust anyone who walks around in boots that fine, she said shortly. He answers to Mr. Weatherby. Mr. Weatherby is friendly with important men in the city. That is what we hear. Their talk is not for us. Then we assume nothing, Alexander said. We do not tell them yet. Her hands twisted in her shawl. How long can we hide you, she asked. They will come back. They said they will search. They will look into every corner. He frowned. If they search everywhere, they will find me. If they find me without my memory clear, I am at the mercy of whoever tells the first story. Then you must remember quickly, she said. He gave a faint breath of laughter. I am trying. She almost laughed too, out of sheer nerves. You cannot stay sitting up, she said. If they come near, you must lie down like before. If they open the canvas, he finished quietly, you will have to decide whether to claim you found me today or weeks ago. And why you did not speak sooner, she swallowed. I will be called a liar either way. I am sorry, he said. I never wished to drag anyone into this. You did not drag me, she said. I walked in myself. He held her gaze. Why? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Because you were alone, she said at last, and so am I. Something softened in his face. Then we will not be alone in this, he said. She stood abruptly. I must go back. If I vanish now, they will notice. If anyone comes near, do not make a sound. Do not call my name. I will not, he promised. She pulled the canvas aside, stepped out, and let it fall behind her. The rest of the day crawled. Hale and the constable finally left, but not for long. The next morning they returned with 2 more men. This time they carried no weapons, but their expressions were set and serious. We will search properly today, the constable announced. No corners left unchecked. Orders from above, from above. Those words made Emily's stomach drop. She watched as they began at one end of the dump, moving methodically. They peered into every lean-to, every shack, every crevice where someone might hide. They asked questions. They opened bundles. What are they doing? Tom whispered at her side. Looking for trouble, she said. That is not hard to find, he muttered. The line of men moved closer. A woman protested when they tipped out a basket of rags she had carefully sorted. The constable apologized, but did not stop. Hale walked a little ahead, pointing now and then. That hut, he would say. Check that one. Emily's shelter stood near the far edge. She could feel the space shrinking between them with every passing minute. Mr. Brooks sidled up to her. If you know anything, he murmured, now is the time to speak. The palace will reward those who help, and I will take my share, mind you. I know nothing, she said. His eyes narrowed. You are jumpy today. Makes a man think. Think what you like, she replied, surprising herself with the sharpness in her tone. His expression darkened. Careful, girl. Hale turned at the word careful, his gaze seeking the source. For a heartbeat, his eyes met Emily's. Then he looked away toward the far wall. The shelters along there, he told the constable. We have not checked them yet. Emily's breath hitched. The men began toward the edge, boots crunching over broken glass and bone. They passed Tom, who stared up at them with wide eyes. They passed the old man who slept in a barrel, peering inside, then moving on. Emily's legs felt rooted to the spot. She wanted to run ahead, to throw herself in the doorway of her shelter, to shout that there was nothing inside. Instead, she stood and watched as the constable's boots came to a stop right outside the canvas flap that hid Alexander. The constable reached for the canvas. Emily's throat closed. Sound refused to come. Then, from somewhere inside her panic, a thought appeared. Sir, she cried, louder than she meant to. Sir, over here. The constable's hand paused on the canvas flap. He frowned over his shoulder. What is it? She pointed wildly toward a tangle of broken carts a little way off. I saw movement there just now, she said. A man, I think. He ducked down when he heard you coming. Hale turned too, eyes narrowing. A man? Yes, sir, she said, trying to make her voice shake with fear instead of truth. I thought he was only another picker, but he kept looking toward you and then hiding. I did not like the look of him. The constable hesitated. Hale studied her face, searching, weighing. Be quick then, Hale said. If he runs, we lose him. The constable dropped the canvas and strode toward the carts, the other men following. Hale lingered half a heartbeat longer, then went after them, calling, Spread out there, check under the boards. Emily's knees almost gave way. She forced herself to walk in the other direction, bending as if to inspect a pile of rags. Her hands shook so badly she could barely lift them. The men searched the broken carts thoroughly, kicking aside planks, peering into shadows. A rat darted out. One of the workers yelped. There was no man, of course, but the rat gave enough of a story. "Nothing," the constable said at last, straightening. "Only vermin. Rats run from more than cats," Hale murmured, but his interest in the far wall seemed to have cooled. "We have done what we can for today," the constable decided. "We will return tomorrow. The prince cannot simply vanish into smoke." "Perhaps he can," someone muttered. They drifted back toward the lane, Hale walking with the constable, their heads close, their words too low to catch. Mr. Brooks fawned behind them until they passed out of sight. Emily did not breathe until the last polished boot disappeared. Only then did she dare slip away. She walked, not too quickly, to the far edge. She even paused to pick up a broken plate, just in case someone watched. When she reached the shelter, she knelt to untie a ragged bit of rope that held the canvas, as if she only wanted something from within. Inside, Alexander sat stiff and still, eyes fixed on the flap. His hands were clenched so tightly, his knuckles blanched. "You heard," she whispered. "Yes," he said. His voice was low, controlled. "You have good instincts." "I nearly had none at all," she replied. "If they had lifted the canvas." "They did not," he said. "Because you lied for me." She sank down beside him, suddenly weak. "They will come again tomorrow, they said so." "Then we cannot be here when they do," he said. She looked at him. "And where do you expect to be? You can barely walk across the floor." "That is improving," he said. "If necessity must be my physician, I will trust it. We must leave, Emily. You know that as well as I." She did know. The thought terrified her. "This is my place," she said. "Ugly as it is, I know it. I do not belong outside it." "You also do not belong in a prison for treason," he replied, "which is where they may put you if they decide you have kept me from them." She flinched. They would not. He looked at her, and in his eyes she saw no comfort, only honesty. "They might not call it that," he said. "They would find some other name, but the walls would be the same." She pressed her lips together. "Where would we go?" she asked quietly. He drew in a slow breath. "There is a man," he said. "Mr. Alden. He was once my tutor. He taught me my letters, my histories, my sums. He left the palace some years ago when he grew tired of court manners and politics. He has a small house to the west of the city, by a little church. He is honest. He would help us, if we reached him." "You are sure?" she asked. "If he has not changed," Alexander said. "He used to tell me that kings should fear no honest truth. I believed him. It seems others did not." "What if he is not there?" she said. "What if he has forgotten you? I am a stranger. He may not let me cross his doorstep." "I will ask him to," Alexander replied simply. She looked at him, at the steadiness in his face despite his pallor, and something in her chest eased. "How far is it?" she asked. "A few miles," he said. "Not near enough to smell the palace, not far enough to live entirely without it. I remember trees along the lane and a field." "A few miles," she repeated. "You say that as if it is nothing." "It will not be nothing," he said, "but we can take it slowly at dawn before others wake. You have a cart, do you not? I saw the marks of wheels outside." "A barrow," she corrected. "For moving heavier scrap. It is old. The wheel squeaks." "Then we will make it squeak a little more," he said. "You can hide me under rags. From a distance no one will see my face." She bit her lip. "If we are caught on the road," she said, "there will be no more excuses. No rats to chase. You will be in the cart, and I will be pulling you. We will claim I am ill," he said, "which is true, that I am your sick cousin, and you take him to a parson known for kindness. Also true enough in its way." "You think so quickly," she murmured. "I have had to," he said. "From the cradle they put questions in front of me and waited to see what I would do. It is a habit now." She rose. "Then we go at dawn." "Will you be safe tonight?" he asked. "I will sleep in my room," she said. "If I do not, my landlady will complain to Brooks and he will remember it later. I will say nothing. I will bring the barrow here before the sun is properly up." He nodded. "Emily," he added as she reached for the canvas. "Thank you." "If you keep thanking me, I shall grow vain," she said, and slipped out. That night, she hardly slept. Every creak in the house sounded like boots. Her landlady's snores on the other side of the thin wall felt like warnings. When sleep did come, It brought dreams of posters with her own face on them, nailed to every lamppost. She woke before the sky lightened. The streets were quiet, faintly damp. She wrapped herself in her shawl and crept from the house, trying not to wake anyone. The barrow stood against the wall where she had left it, its wooden wheel caked with mud. She gripped the handles and pushed, teeth gritted as it bumped over stones. The sound seemed deafening in the early silence. At the dump, fog lay low, muffling shapes. No one stirred yet. She reached the shelter and tapped softly. "It's me," she whispered. "Are you awake?" The canvas moved. Alexander's hand appeared, drawing it aside. "I have been awake for hours," he said. "Waiting." "You sound better," she said. "Fear is an excellent medicine," he replied with a crooked smile. He stepped out, careful and slow. He still moved stiffly, but he stood tall, his shoulders straight. The torn coat hung oddly on him, but his bearing made it look like a cloak of state rather than rags. "You look too much like yourself," she muttered. "If posters carry your face, anyone with eyes will know." "Let us hope their eyes are sleepy at this hour," he said. "Show me the barrow." She led him to it. He laughed once, very softly. "This noble carriage," he said. "I have ridden in worse for amusement, I think. It seems less amusing now." "Climb in," she instructed. "Lie flat. I will cover you." He obeyed, folding himself into the shallow space as best he could. She piled sacks and old cloths over him, leaving a narrow gap near his face for air. "Can you breathe?" she asked. "Well enough," came his muffled reply. She took a breath, gripped the handles and lifted. The weight dragged at her arms, but she leaned forward, set her feet, and pushed. The wheels squeaked as promised. She moved slowly across the uneven ground, keeping to the shadows of the heaps. Once she had to stop as a stray dog trotted past, nose to the ground. It sniffed at the barrow, then moved on. At the edge of the dump, the world opened. The lane stretched ahead, damp and quiet. Fields lay beyond, pale in the dim light. She had rarely walked this way. Most of her paths led toward the city, toward the markets where broken things might be sold. Now she turned away from all that, pulling her barrow toward a future she could not see. The squeak of the wheel seemed to echo through the open air. After a while, Alexander's voice came from under the rags. "Describe what you see," he said. "Dirt," she replied. "Mud. A hedge. A tree with no leaves yet." He chuckled. "You are not a poet." "No one has paid me to be," she said. "There is a stone there. I will lift the barrow. Hold tight." She did, muscles straining as she maneuvered the wheel over the rock. He grunted softly as it jolted. "Sorry," she said. "I have been jostled worse on royal processions," he replied. "Continue." "Why do you want me to talk?" she asked. "So I can know where we are," he said. "So I do not feel quite so helpless, lying here like a sack of flour." She thought of him on a horse, cloaked and straight, people bowing as he passed. The image did not fit with the man hidden under rags. "You said your tutor lives near a church," she said. "I see no church." "We are not there yet," he replied. "We must pass a small bridge first, if memory serves, then a turning lined with poplars." "Poplars," she repeated. "I do not know one tree from another." "You will," he said. "One day." The sky brightened slowly, from deep grey to a paler shade. A few wagons rattled past on a road farther off, but no one paid attention to a girl with a barrow so long as she kept her head down and her pace steady. After some time, she saw a trickle of water ahead, crossing the lane under a low stone arch. "The bridge," she called softly. "Yes," came his answer. "How small is the stream?" "Small as my hope," she said. "Then it is still there," he replied. "Turn left after it, when the hedges end. There should be taller trees." She turned. Ahead, silhouettes rose against the brightening sky, taller and more slender than the others. "Those?" she asked. "Poplars," he said. "We are close. Mr. Alden's house is grey stone, with ivy. The church stands beside it, little and square." "You remember much," she said. "Some things stay," he replied. "Faces, places, the feeling of safety." "You felt safe there?" she said. "As safe as one can, being told he must shape the world," he answered. Soon, the outline of a building appeared through the mist. A low stone wall, a gate, a narrow house with a steep roof. Beside it, a small church with a modest bell tower. "That must be it," she murmured. "Knock on the door." he said. Ask for Mr. Alden. Say an old pupil seeks his help. That will mean nothing to his servants, she said. They will laugh. Then tell them Alexander James Edmund sends his respects, he replied, and watch their faces. She hesitated, then left the barrow by the wall, tucked partly behind a bush. The road was quiet. She walked up the path, her boots leaving faint marks on the stones, and lifted the knocker. It clanged louder than she felt right. After a moment, the door creaked open. A middle-aged woman in a plain dress peered out, her hair hastily pinned, her expression wary. "Yes? I seek Mr. Alden," Emily said. "Is he here?" "He is," the woman said. "And who are you knocking at this hour?" "Emily Carter," she replied. "He does not know me, but someone who does know him sent me," the woman sniffed. "We are not a lodging house." "I know," Emily said quickly. "Please, tell him Alexander James Edmund sends his respects." The woman's eyes widened, then narrowed. "Is this some jest?" she demanded. "No," Emily said. "He told me to say those exact words." The woman hesitated, then opened the door wider. "Wait here," she said. "Do not move." She vanished down the hall. Emily stood in the doorway, clutching her shawl. The house smelled of baking bread and old books. It made her think of nothing in her own life. Footsteps approached. A man came into view, leaning slightly on a cane. His hair was grey, his beard trimmed neatly, his eyes, sharp and curious, fixed on her at once. "You brought that name to my door," he said without greeting. "Why?" "Because he told me to," Emily said. "He is outside, in the barrow." "The barrow," the man repeated slowly. "He asked for Mr. Alden," she rushed on. "He said you taught him. He said you would know the name." The man's face changed. Not much, but enough. The lines around his mouth deepened. His eyes darkened. "Show me," he said. They went down the path together. Emily's heart pounded harder with each step. At the wall, she pulled back the rags. Alexander blinked up at them from under the cloth. For a moment, all three were still. Then the older man let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "Your Highness," he said softly, "or do you prefer I call you the foolish boy who never listened to my warnings?" Alexander smiled faintly. "Mr. Alden," he said, "I am very glad to see you." Mr. Alden sank to one knee beside the barrow, ignoring the dirt on his trousers. He reached out, gripped Alexander's shoulder. "I thought you dead," he said. "The whole city buzzes with talk. What in heaven's name has happened to you?" "It is a long story," Alexander said. "May I tell it inside? I confess I am tired of lying on boards." "Of course," Mr. Alden said at once. He glanced at Emily. "Help me get him in. Martha," he called over his shoulder. "Prepare the spare room. Quickly." Together they half-lifted, half-guided Alexander from the barrow. He swayed once, and Emily's hand shot out to steady him. His fingers closed around hers briefly in thanks. Inside, the house seemed to shrink to accommodate his presence. Martha fussed over clean sheets and hot water. Mr. Alden insisted on taking Alexander's arm himself, leading him to a small room with a narrow bed and a window overlooking the churchyard. When Alexander lay down, Mr. Alden stepped back, breathing hard. "You look thinner," he said. "And older." "Both are true," Alexander replied. "This is Emily. She saved my life." Mr. Alden turned to study her properly. Emily wiped her hands on her skirt, suddenly aware of the dirt under her nails, the frayed edges of her sleeves. "I found him in the rubbish," she said simply. "He was half buried. I could not leave him." Mr. Alden's gaze softened. "Then I owe you more than I can say," he said. "You must be hungry. Martha will make you something." "I am well," Emily protested, though her stomach growled. "You are not well," he said. "Sit. Tell me everything, both of you, and we will decide what must be done." They moved to the small parlor. Martha brought bread, cheese, and tea that tasted like luxury. Emily ate slowly, stunned by how good plain food could be when it was not scraped from someone else's plate. Alexander told his story in simple lines, his last clear memory of the palace, the strange, gentle pressure that took him away. Waking in darkness, then in rubbish, then to Emily's face. Emily filled in the parts he could not, of the dump, the searches, Hale's questions. Mr. Alden listened without interruption, his fingers steepled under his chin. "So," he said at last, No open accusation, no brute force, just a prince who vanishes, and a kingdom that must decide what to do without him. Some seem ready to decide already, Alexander said. Who steers the council now? Lord Ashcombe has taken a firm hand, Mr. Alden replied. He speaks softly, but he gathers influence. He says the king is not strong, that the realm needs guidance, and a missing heir gives him space, Alexander murmured. Indeed, Mr. Alden said. There are others too, smaller men eager to attach themselves to a larger coat. And the people, they whisper. Some say you drowned, some say you fled duty, some say wicked things I will not repeat in front of a lady. Emily shifted, unused to being called that. What will they say when I appear? Alexander asked. That depends on who presents you, Mr. Alden said gravely. If Lord Ashcombe brings you forth pale and grateful, he will say he rescued you from kidnappers. If you arrive with no proof and only your word, some will call you impostor or mad. So we need proof, Alexander said. Yes, Mr. Alden said, and we must choose whom to trust in the palace. There are still good men there. Not many, but some. My first thought is Sir William Harrow. He has served the king honestly for years. He is not clever enough to scheme, which is a recommendation in these times. Can we reach him? Alexander asked. I can send a message, Mr. Alden said. Carefully worded. A bird among hawks must fly low. If he receives it and believes it, he will come, but it may take days. Days, Emily repeated. You will be safe here, Mr. Alden told her. She looked down at her hands. I am not meant for houses like this, she said softly. You are meant for whatever your courage earns you, he replied, and you have already shown more of that than many nobles I have known. Colour rose to her cheeks. We must let no one know he is here, she said quickly, changing the subject. If Lord Ashcombe, or men like Hale, hear of it first— You are right, Mr. Alden said. Martha is loyal. She will say nothing. I have few visitors, and fewer I call friends. But gossip flies on wings we do not always see. As if summoned by his words, there was a knock at the outer door. Martha's voice came faintly. I will answer it, sir. They all went still. Who comes this early? Emily whispered. Mr. Alden rose, leaning on his cane. Likely the vicar, he said. He borrows my books. Stay here. He left the room. Emily and Alexander exchanged a glance. Do you trust him? She asked quietly. With my life, Alexander said. Voices murmured in the hall. One was Martha's, another was male, smooth and unfamiliar. I have no wish to trouble you, that voice said. I am only making inquiries on behalf of the palace. It will not take long. Emily's blood turned cold. She stood, every instinct screaming to run, to hide, to drag Alexander back to the barrow and flee. But there was nowhere to go. The house was small. The men were at the only door. Mr. Alden reappeared, his face carefully neutral. There are visitors, he said, his tone too calm. They ask to see us all. They say they come from the king. Who are they? Alexander asked. Mr. Hale, the steward you spoke of, Mr. Alden answered, and another man who calls himself Mr. Stanton. He wears no uniform. That is what worries me. Emily's knees weakened. They followed us, she whispered. Or someone saw us on the road. Perhaps both, Mr. Alden said. We cannot know. He looked at Alexander. If you hide, he said, they may search and find you regardless. Then they will say you tried to run. If you face them, you may at least speak for yourself. Alexander drew himself up, shoulders squaring despite his weariness. I will not creep behind curtains in my tutor's house, he said. If they have come from the palace, let them see that I am alive and standing. Emily caught his sleeve. They will take you, she said urgently. They will say it is for your safety. They will not let me come. They will tell the story their way. I know, he said. Do not go, she whispered. He looked at her, and for a moment the prince's mask slipped. She saw the man beneath, uncertain and very young. If I stay hidden, I am already lost, he said softly. At least this way, the world must admit I exist. Mr. Alden nodded once, eyes shining with something like pride and sorrow. We will go together, he said. Emily, stay at his side. Say what you have seen. They may not wish to hear you, but you must speak anyway. They stepped into the narrow hall. Hale stood near the door, hat in hand, clothes immaculate. Beside him was a man Emily had never seen before, tall, well-dressed, with an easy smile that did not touch his eyes. "Mr. Alden," Hale said, "forgive the intrusion. We have news that you may consider grave." "Graver than the prince's absence?" Mr. Alden asked mildly. "That absence may be less certain than we feared," the other man, Mr. Stanton, said smoothly. "There have been reports. A figure seen on the road. A name spoken at a door. Naturally, we wish to ensure that no harm has come to His Highness." Hale's gaze slid past Mr. Alden, landing on Alexander. For a heartbeat, his carefully schooled expression broke. Shock flared, then vanished under a layer of deference. "Your Highness," he said, bowing, "we have been searching for you." "Not in the right places, it seems," Alexander replied. Mr. Stanton stepped forward half a pace. "Your Highness," he said with warm concern, "it is a joy to see you alive. The king will be relieved beyond measure. You have been sorely missed." "I am glad to hear my father is well," Alexander said. "Where is he? Why did he not come himself?" "The king is indisposed," Stanton said smoothly. "The strain of your disappearance, you understand. He trusts his council to act for him. We are here to bring you safely home." He did not look at Emily as he said it. He did not have to. His words already pushed her aside. "And who sent you?" Alexander asked. "Lord Ashcombe," Stanton replied, "in the king's name." Mr. Alden's fingers tightened on his cane. "Lord Ashcombe has many duties," he said. "I hope truth is among them." Stanton's smile did not falter. "We have no time for debate," he said. "Your Highness is weak. The journey back must be made swiftly and comfortably. A carriage waits outside. Physicians stand ready at the palace. You will be well cared for." Alexander glanced at Emily. "And my rescuer?" he asked. "The one who found me, sheltered me, brought me here. She has a right to be heard." Hale's eyes flicked to Emily then, taking in her worn dress, her rough hands. His mouth tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course," Stanton said. "The palace is grateful to all who aid it. The young woman will be questioned, so that we may understand how this misfortune occurred. If she has acted honestly, she will be rewarded. If not, she has acted more honestly than many in fine clothes," Alexander cut in. "She comes with me." Stanton's pleasant mask cracked for the first time. "That would not be fitting, Your Highness," he said. "It would reflect poorly on you to arrive at court accompanied by a person of her station. The court is a place of delicate balances. Appearances matter." "I do not care for appearances," Alexander said sharply. "I care for truth." Hale cleared his throat. "Your Highness," he said softly, "the palace is in turmoil. Rumors spread like fire. Many already whisper lies about your absence. If you return with a common girl at your side, they will say she bewitched you, that she lured you away. It may harm you, and her." Emily stepped forward. "I lured no one," she said, her voice shaking. "I found him in the dirt. I dragged him to shelter. I fed him my own bread. If you wish to call that witchcraft, then your world is stranger than ours." Stanton's eyes cooled. "No one doubts your efforts," he said, "but matters of state are complex. You would not understand." "Explain them to me then," she said. He looked past her as if she were a draft. "You see," Mr. Alden said quietly, "you ask his trust but will not hear his witness." Stanton sighed as though patient with difficult children. "Mr. Alden," he said, "you have served the royal family long. You must see the danger. The prince must be surrounded by counsel, not carried away by sentiment. This girl will be taken to a safe place where she can tell her story in full. That is all." "A safe place," Emily repeated. "Safe for whom?" "For the truth," he said. "And if my truth does not suit your story?" she asked. "Then you will be mistaken," he said gently. "People often are." Alexander took a step toward her. "I will not go without her," he said. "Your Highness," Hale said quietly, "I beg you to reconsider. Think of your father. Think of the kingdom. If you refuse, there will be talk of stubbornness, of unfitness. Those who oppose you will seize upon it. Do not give them such a gift." Even Mr. Alden looked torn. "Sometimes the bravest choice is to live to fight another day," he murmured. Alexander stood very still. The house felt too small to hold all the things unsaid. At last, he exhaled. "Very well," he said. "I will return with you. But Emily is not to be harmed, not imprisoned, not silenced. She has done nothing but good." "She will be treated fairly," Stanton said at once. "You have my word." Mr. Alden's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Two footmen appeared at the door as if conjured, ready to assist. They moved toward Alexander, hands polite but insistent. Emily reached for him. "Do not trust them," she whispered. "Do not let them twist this." "I will not," he said. His fingers closed around hers briefly, squeezing hard. Then the footmen were at his elbows, guiding him gently toward the door. Emily moved to follow. A third man, one she had not noticed before, stepped into her path. He wore no livery, but his posture screamed habit of obedience. His hand closed around her arm, not painfully but firmly. "You will come later," he said, "in another carriage." "I will go now," she shot back, trying to pull free. His grip held steady. "Orders, miss." She looked past him, heart pounding. Alexander had reached the threshold. He turned once, his eyes finding hers. There was so much in that look. Fear, apology, something deeper she refused to name. "Emily," he called. "Alexander." Stanton's voice cut smooth between them. "Your Highness, please," he said. "The road awaits." The footman guided Alexander out. The door stood open just long enough for Emily to see the carriage, dark, polished, waiting like a promise or a trap. She tried to lunge forward. The man's fingers dug into her arm. Mr. Alden stepped toward her, but Hale blocked him with a small, regretful shake of the head. Stanton put one foot on the carriage step, then looked back into the house. His gaze brushed over Emily, over her rough clothes, over the hand gripping her. "Do not concern yourself," he said lightly to Alexander. "You will never see that girl again." Emily jerked against the man's grip. "Let me go," she said. "How you cannot, miss," he said quietly. "My orders are not to hurt you, only to keep you back." "That is a kind of hurt," she snapped. Alexander turned halfway, but the footman urged him on. Stanton smiled toward the lane. "Please," he said smoothly. "The sooner we leave this poor old tutor in peace, the sooner His Highness will be safe." Mr. Alden stepped forward. "I will come as well," he said. "You may need a witness." Hale hesitated. "The carriage is not large," he said. "Then send for another," Mr. Alden replied. "I do not intend to let my former pupil vanish twice." Stanton's jaw tightened. "As you wish," he said shortly. "But keep up, sir. We must not be delayed." They all moved outside. The footman helped Alexander into the carriage. Mr. Alden followed with as much dignity as his cane allowed. Emily struggled. "I will walk," she cried. "I will follow on foot. I will run. I do not care. You cannot leave me." The man holding her sighed. "Another carriage will come for you," he said. "That is the order, no more." The coach door shut. Horses snorted. Wheels rattled. Alexander leaned toward the small window. "Emily," he tried again. She broke free long enough to reach the lane, but the carriage was already moving. Stanton raised his hat to her as they rolled away, as if bidding farewell to a passer-by. She stood there, breathing hard, watching the coach grow smaller on the road that led toward the heart of a world she had never imagined entering. Mr. Alden looked back once from the carriage window. His eyes met hers, full of apology. Then they were gone. The second carriage did not come at once. It arrived near noon, plain and dark, without crest or flourish. The same man who had held her climbed down from the box. "Miss Carter," he said. "You remember my name?" She said dully. "It is my business to remember," he replied. "Get in, if you please." She hesitated. "If I do not, please?" she asked. He met her gaze. His eyes were not cruel, only tired. "Then I will still have to ask you to get in," he said. "You have done nothing wrong. But they want to hear you. The palace has questions." "The palace," she murmured. Her hands curled into fists. "Will I see him?" she asked. "The prince? That is not in my orders," he said. "I know nothing of that." "Of course," she said. She climbed into the carriage. Inside, the seat was softer than anything she owned. The air smelled faintly of leather and dust. A single small window showed the lane, then the hedge, then the road. As the carriage jolted forward, Emily watched Mr. Alden's house vanish from view. The church bell rang once, a single clear note. She pressed her palms to her knees to stop them shaking. "Do not cry," she told herself under her breath. "You are a rag picker. You do not cry because gentlemen make promises they cannot keep." The city rose around her slowly. Streets grew narrower, then wider, then finer. The houses along them changed from crooked rows to brick fronts with polished windows. People in better coats walked with purpose. No one looked at the plain carriage. Emily felt as if she had been carried into a painting. The carriage slowed at wide gates. She glimpsed stone walls, iron bars, guards in neat coats. The gates opened. They rolled inside. The palace courtyard was larger than any street she knew. Carriages stood in a line, servants hurried, horses stamped. The door opened. The same man offered her his hand. "We are here," he said. She stepped down, her boots feeling wrong on the smooth stones. "Head down," he murmured softly. "It is easier if they do not see your eyes." She bristled. "I have done nothing to be ashamed of," she said. "Nor have I," he replied. "Yet I keep my head down as well. Come." He led her through a side door, not the grand entrance where gentlemen in silk passed. They walked along a narrow corridor smelling of soap and cooked meat. Servants glanced up, then away again. He opened a door and gestured her inside. The room was small, a bed, a chair, a high window that showed only sky. It was cleaner than her own rented corner. It was also locked when he closed the door. She heard the key turn. "Wait here," he said through the wood. "Someone will come for you." "How long?" she called. No answer. She sat on the bed. The mattress dipped under her weight, unfamiliar. Her fingers twisted in her skirt. Hours passed. She could not tell how many. Light moved across the slice of window. Somewhere, a bell chimed the hour again and again. Footsteps came and went in the corridor. Once the door opened. A woman in a grey dress entered, carrying folded cloth across her arm. "We are to make you look decent," she said briskly. "Stand up." Emily stared. "What am I?" she asked. "A doll." "A witness," the woman said. "Witnesses must not look like beggars." Her tone softened a little. "It is not kindness, if that is what you fear. They wish to prevent you from shaming them." "That is not my thought," Emily said. "I have shamed no one." "You are about to," the woman murmured. "Lift your arms." The dress she offered was plain but whole, a dull blue with a higher neckline than Emily's own. The fabric felt strange against her skin. The woman pinned her hair back roughly, muttering about tangles. "You have seen him?" Emily asked suddenly. "Seen whom?" the woman replied. "The prince." The maid's hands stilled. "We see more than we are meant to," she said. "He arrived this morning, pale but steady." The king wept. Lord Ashcombe looked as if he had bitten a lemon. "Lord Ashcombe," Emily repeated. "And what of the one called Stanton?" the woman snorted. "He smiles too much. He is Lord Ashcombe's tongue. He tells the story the Lord wishes others to hear." "Do they know I am here?" Emily asked. "They know," the woman said. "Word runs fast. Some say you bewitched the prince." "I did no such thing," Emily said quickly. "I know that," the woman replied. "Bewitchment needs no bread and no dragging through rubbish. That is work, not spells." "Will he speak for me?" Emily asked quietly. "Do you think he will?" The maid's fingers paused in Emily's hair. "He already has," she said. "That is why you are to be brought before them at all. Lord Ashcombe argued to send you away unseen. The prince insisted." A breath slipped from Emily's lungs. "When?" she whispered. "Soon," the woman said. "They assemble now in the long hall. Men of rank, ladies who love to hear scandal from the mouths of the poor." She gave Emily's shoulder a brief, firm squeeze. "Do not let them turn your tongue into theirs. Speak as you are. That is what scares them most." She left. The door locked again. Emily stood there in the plain blue dress, feeling strange and thin and not herself. At last the lock clicked once more. The man from earlier returned. "Miss Carter," he said, "they are ready for you. Ready, as if she were a dish to be placed on a table." He led her along corridors she could never have found alone. Tapestries hung on the walls, scenes of battles and hunts. She kept her eyes forward. Her heart thumped so loudly she felt sure everyone must hear it. They stopped before tall doors. Voices murmured beyond. The man nodded to the sentry. The doors swung inward. The hall was long, full of people. Benches along the sides held gentlemen in dark coats, ladies in pale gowns. At the far end, on a slightly raised platform, sat a chair larger than the rest and beside it another, lighter one. In the larger chair, A man with thinning hair and lined face leaned forward, hands gripping the carved arms. His eyes were fixed on the figure standing slightly in front of him. Alexander. He wore clean clothes now, though the cut was simpler than the finery around him. His hair had been washed, his face shaved. He looked like himself again, except his eyes were older. He turned as Emily entered. For a second, the hall faded. There was only his gaze finding hers, softening with something like relief. "Emily," he said under his breath. Lord Ashcombe stood near him, tall, composed, his hair silver at the temples, his eyes cool. Stanton hovered at his shoulder, ready to speak. At the other side, a man in a plain but dignified coat looked on with frank concern. Emily guessed that must be Sir William Harrow. Mr. Alden stood a step behind him, cane planted firmly, chin lifted. A voice rang out. "Miss Emily Carter," the herald announced, "resident of the outskirts of London, rag picker." Some of the ladies frowned at the last word. Others leaned forward, eager. The king spoke. His voice shook slightly. "Bring her closer," he said. Emily's legs carried her forward. She stopped where the man guiding her indicated, halfway between the doors and the platform. Alexander moved as if to go to her, but Ashcombe's hand touched his sleeve lightly. "Your Highness," he murmured. Alexander shrugged off the touch with a small, impatient movement, but he stayed where he was. The king studied Emily. "You are Emily Carter," he said. "You found my son." "Yes, Your Majesty," she replied, barely trusting her voice. "You may speak honestly here," he went on. "No answer will anger me so much as a lie would. Tell us in your own words what happened." Emily swallowed. She told them. She spoke of the dump, of the hand in the rubbish, of dragging Alexander to her shelter, of hiding him while Hale and the constable walked among the heaps, of the reward posters, of the barrow and the road and Mr. Alden's doorstep. Her words were simple. She did not try to embellish them. Once or twice her voice shook, but she did not stop. Stanton listened with head slightly tilted as if amused. Ashcombe's expression did not change. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Sir William cleared his throat. "Your Majesty," he said, "if I may. This account matches Mr. Alden's letter, which I received last night. The times, the places, all align. There is no sign the girl sought advantage. She could have gone to the palace at once, claimed the reward, and yet she did not." Ashcombe spoke then, smooth as polished stone. "Fear can be as powerful as greed, Sir William," he said. "A girl in her station may well have feared that she would be blamed for His Highness's condition. She might have wished to secure some private understanding before exposing herself to justice." "I did not think of reward at all," Emily protested. Ashcombe turned his gaze on her. "You expect us to believe that?" he asked quietly. "You, who have lived with little, did not consider that the palace might pay handsomely for the return of its heir." Her cheeks burned. "I thought of him dying if I did nothing," she said. That was all. Murmurs rippled along the benches. Mr. Alden stepped forward. "I have watched her," he said. "She refused even the comfort of my parlour until His Highness agreed she should enter. She thinks of her own worth less than anyone I have met. That may be wrong of her, but it is hardly the mark of cunning." Stanton smiled. "And yet," he said, "you did take him to Mr. Alden, did you not? Not to the nearest guard station, not to the nearest magistrate, to a man who has been, shall we say, at odds with certain members of the council." Mr. Alden's eyes flashed. "My only quarrel with the council," he said, "is when it ignores the good of the kingdom." "Enough," the king said sharply. The room hushed. He looked at his son. "Alexander," he said, "do you confirm her account?" "I do," Alexander said at once. "Without her, I would still be lying among garbage, or worse." "And do you remember nothing of how you came there?" the king asked. Alexander's jaw tightened. "I remember enough," he said. "I recall Lord Ashcombe urging that I take some air, that the city weighed heavy on me, that a short journey by night would ease my mind before the council met on matters of trade. A carriage was prepared. I entered it trusting those who served me." He looked at Ashcombe. "After that, only darkness." Ashcombe's face did not move. "Carriages are not traps, Your Highness," he said calmly. "Others rode with you. Guards, drivers. If there was any mischance, it must be in their negligence." "And where are they?" Sir William asked. These loyal guards who lost a prince. Gone, Ashcombe said. Vanished with the carriage. We must assume they have met ill ends. How convenient, Mr. Alden muttered. Ashcombe ignored him. We do not know what befell them or His Highness once he left the palace, Ashcombe continued. We know only that he was found weeks later in the company of a girl of no clear connections and a tutor who has often opposed your council's measures in private. And you think that enough to cast suspicion here, the king said, gesturing toward Emily and Mr. Alden. I think it enough to warrant caution, Ashcombe replied. We are not children, your majesty. Princes do not vanish by chance. Some hand guided this, whether with good intent or ill. We must discover that hand. Look closer to your own, Alexander said quietly. You urged that drive. You arranged the time. You insisted no great escort was needed, only a few discreet men so as not to attract attention. You said the people would panic if they saw too many guards. Ashcombe spread his hands. I advised your highness as I thought best, he said. I did not order you into the carriage. You knew the route, Alexander went on. You said we would circle the western fields and return by morning, and yet I woke in the eastern dumps. How did that happen, if not by someone's plan? Murmurs again, louder this time. Stanton stepped in, voice smooth. Your highness, he said, you were half conscious when the girl found you. You admit your memory is incomplete. It would be unwise to accuse a man of Lord Ashcombe's standing on what might be dreams, and yet you do not hesitate to let whispers fall on this girl, Mr. Alden said. Ashcombe smiled thinly. We all seek the truth, he said. The difference is that I seek it with care. Emily felt all their eyes on her. For a moment she wanted to shrink, to disappear. Then she remembered the damp shelter, the weight of Alexander's body as she dragged him from the rubbish. Her shoulders straightened. If I wished gold, she said, I would have told no one of this. I would have waited until the prince was stronger, until he could walk and talk without help. I would have found a way to bring him to the gates and say, see who I have kept safe. Pay me. I did not. I took him to the first man he trusted. I brought him to someone who could speak for him. If that was wrong, then I do not know how to be right. A lady in pale blue near the front covered her mouth, as if surprised by her own sympathy. Sir William nodded slowly. Her reasoning matches her tale, he said. The king rubbed his temples. Lord Ashcombe, he said, in all our years together, I have depended upon you. You have guided this council. You have arranged meetings, journeys, alliances. You have urged me to rest when matters grew heavy. He looked up. Now my son returns with questions about those very arrangements. He returns speaking of a night journey he does not recall ending. His gaze hardened. How do you answer that? Ashcombe bowed slightly. Your Majesty, he said, I cannot answer for what I did not do. I arranged the carriage. I urged some air. I did not order any harm. If harm came, it must be from those entrusted with the road. I stand ready to face any fair inquiry. Words, Mr. Alden murmured. The king heard him. Then there will be inquiry, he said. Sir William, you will convene a smaller council to examine every step of that night, every order given, every man summoned. Until then, Lord Ashcombe, you will withdraw from your duties. Ashcombe's composure cracked for a heartbeat. Your Majesty, he began, I will not have a man suspected of losing my son in charge of his safety now he is returned, the king said sharply. You will retire to your country seat until this matter is resolved. That is not punishment. It is prudence. The hall buzzed. Ashcombe inclined his head slowly. As you wish, he said. My concern has always been the crown. I hope those who replace me will share that concern and not be blinded by gratitude to new influences. His eyes flicked toward Emily as he spoke the last words. Then he stepped back. Stanton's jaw was tight, his pleasant mask strained. What of the girl? Someone called from the benches. What is to be done with her? Emily's stomach lurched. She saved my life, Alexander said loudly, before the king could answer. Without her, there would be no inquiry, because there would be no heir. That may be, a courtier muttered, but she is still— Say it, Alexander challenged. Say what she is. The man faltered. Of low birth, he managed, of no education, of no place here. Alexander turned to his father. Your Majesty, he said. Father, I have been carried through streets I scarcely know. I have walked among heaps where our broken things lie. I have heard how our people fear the workhouse more than hunger. I knew none of this as I ought. Emily taught me. She spoke plain truth when all around me spoke comforting lies. The hall listened. She is not of no place, he went on. Her place, if there is any justice, is by my side, reminding me of what the kingdom truly is. I will not have her punished for the kindness that saved me. This is not about punishment, a lady objected. It is about order, about keeping the high and the low. Separate, Emily blurted. All eyes swung back to her. The lady flushed. I meant only that the court has ways, she said. If we invite every girl from the streets to stand with princes— I am not every girl, Emily said quietly. I am only myself. I did not ask to be here. I dragged a man from rubbish because I could not walk away. If that puts me out of order, then perhaps the order is wrong. A low murmur of approval, quickly smothered, ran along the benches. The king closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again, clearer. I am tired, he said, but not so tired I cannot see what stands before me. A son who has been in danger, a counsel that has grown too powerful, a girl who has shown more sense than many who advise me. He looked at Emily. You have done me a service beyond measure. You will not be sent to any safe place against your will. You will remain here as a guest under my protection until matters are settled. A gasp went up. Your Majesty, someone whispered. A guest? In the north wing, the king continued, ignoring them. Among the smaller apartments, she will be taught what she needs to know to walk these halls without fear of tripping. She will be free to speak with my son when propriety allows. He turned to Alexander. As for anything more, that is a question for another day. The kingdom will need time to breathe after this. So will I. Alexander's shoulders eased a little. Thank you, he said. And you, the king added softly. We'll stay close. No more night journeys without my knowledge. No more trusting others to choose your path. You have seen where that leads. Alexander bowed his head. Yes, father, he said. The king raised a hand. This hearing is concluded, he announced. Lord Ashcombe, you will make your arrangements to depart within 3 days. Sir William, you will bring me names for a new council. Mr. Eldon, you will remain as my advisor for as long as your patience endures. And Miss Carter, he smiled, unexpectedly gentle, you will be shown to your rooms. You have walked far from the rubbish heaps. It is time you sat down. The herald banged his staff. People rose. The hall buzzed as the king was helped from his chair and led out. Emily stood where she was, stunned. A hand touched her elbow lightly. Alexander. He had come down from the platform at once. Now he stood beside her, close enough that she could see the lines fatigue had drawn at the corners of his mouth. Are you all right? He asked quietly. I think so, she said. I am not sure what all right means here. It means you are no longer locked in a room, he said, and you are not being sent away. For now, that seems enough. She laughed once, a shaky sound. Lord Ashcombe does not seem pleased, she said. He will not be guiding me anymore, Alexander replied. There are other men hungry for his place. They will come with flatter voices and softer hands. I will have to be wary. You will have Mr. Alden, she said, and Sir William. And you, he added. She stiffened. I am to be taught how to walk without tripping, she said. That is all. That is not all, he answered. Emily, I meant what I said. You have a place here now, whether they like it or not. She looked up at him. You said, you spoke as if— I do not know what you spoke as, she stammered. I spoke as a man who has nearly lost everything, he said softly, and who has discovered that the one thing he cannot bear to lose now is standing before him. Her breath caught. You must not say such things, she whispered. Not here. Not in front of them. They all know already, he said. They heard me. I could not unsay it if I tried, and I have no wish to try. You should think of the kingdom, she said. Of alliances, of what children bred for this are told to do. I have been thinking of that since I was old enough to walk, he replied. For once I choose to think of the truth instead. The kingdom will not crumble because its prince cares for the girl who saved his life. You call it care, she said, her voice very small. What would you call it, he asked. She searched his face. The hall around them emptied slowly. Servants waited discreetly at a distance. Mr. Alden watched from near a pillar, his eyes kind. I do not have the right word, she said. Then let me offer mine, Alexander replied. I love you, Emily. I love that you argued with me when I was foolish, that you told me of things I did not want to see, that you dragged me from filth when the world had thrown me away. I love you in a way that makes every room without you feel incomplete. Her hands trembled. You are Prince Alexander James Edmund, she murmured, heir to all this. You cannot love a girl who smells of smoke and old rags. I can, he said, I do, and I would rather be a man who stands by that truth than a prince who hides from it. Tears pricked her eyes, shocking her. I do not know how to be anything but what I am, she confessed. I will say the wrong things. I will walk wrong. I will drop plates in front of ladies who have never washed their own. Then we will laugh, he said. We will learn, together. And if your father forbids it, she asked, if the council whispers until he cannot bear it, then I will bear that, Alexander said. But I will not give you up without trying with all I am to keep you. She drew a shaking breath. You are a stubborn man, she said. You have told me so before, he answered. She met his eyes. I do not know if what I feel is the same word, she said haltingly. But when they took you from Mr. Heldon's house, it felt as if someone had pulled half the air from my lungs. When they locked me in that room, I was more afraid you would forget me than that they would punish me. If that is not love, then it is something very like it. He smiled then, slow and luminous, as if the great hall had filled with light. That is enough, he said. Mr. Alden approached, cane tapping softly. I see I am no longer needed here, he said, amusement in his voice. But I will say this. Whatever follows, you both have already done something extraordinary. You have spoken truth in a place that prefers polite lies. Do not let them teach you to forget that. Emily wiped her eyes quickly. What follows? She asked. He glanced toward the door through which the king had gone. Conversations, he said. Arguing over decorum, placating those who fear change. Time, which is both friend and enemy. You, Miss Carter, will be tucked into a corner of this palace and told very carefully what to wear, what to say, when to curtsy. Remember where you came from while you learn. It will keep your head from swelling. I do not think that is a danger, she said. Pride comes in many forms, he replied kindly. Even in pretending you deserve nothing, you must unlearn that as well. Alexander looked at her. Will you stay? He asked softly. In this place that is not yet kind to you. Will you stay and let them teach you their steps, while you teach me not to forget yours? She thought of the dump, of the heaps, of Tom's grin, of Mr. Brooks's sharp voice, of cold mornings and colder evenings. She thought of the shelter by the wall, the canvas, the shape of a man lying on old sacks. I will stay, she said, for as long as I am allowed. He let out a breath she had not known he held. Then we will see what we can build from here, he said. They stood together in the slowly emptying hall, a prince and a girl from the rubbish, looking not at the painted ceilings or the carved pillars, but at each other, aware that the path ahead would be steep, yet somehow less frightening now that they would walk it side by side. The first time Emily tried to walk in a court gown, she tripped over the hem and nearly collided with a footstool. Stop, Lady Marsham said, holding up both hands. You are not chasing chickens, Miss Carter. You are gliding. I am not built for gliding, Emily muttered, catching herself on a chair. You will be, Lady Marsham replied, or at least you will look as if you are. Try again. They were in a small salon in the north wing, far from the main state rooms. The windows were tall, the floor was polished. Emily wore a practice gown, plain, pale, heavier than any cloth she had ever owned. It swished against her ankles when she walked. Head up, Lady Marsham said. Shoulders back. Imagine there is a string running from the top of your head to the ceiling. Do not bend it. If I imagine that, I will be afraid to move, Emily said. Good, Lady Marsham answered. Fear keeps you upright. Emily laughed despite herself. They started again. Step, step, turn. Emily concentrated on her feet, then on her hands, then on where to look. You must not stare at the floor, Lady Marsham warned. If you look down, everyone else will look down. Then they will see their own boots and remember they are not as grand as they wish. And that is bad? Emily asked. It makes them cross, Lady Marsham said. We do not need more cross faces here. Emily lifted her chin, fixing her gaze on the window instead. Her reflection flashed faintly in the glass. A slim figure in borrowed silk, hair pinned up, eyes uncertain. "That is better," Lady Marsham said. "Now imagine people watching you, whispering, judging. How will you walk through that?" "With my shoulders back," Emily said. "And," Lady Marsham prompted. "And with my jaw set," Emily added. Lady Marsham smiled. "That will do." The door opened. Alexander stepped in, half smiling already. "I was told there was a lesson," he said. "I did not realize it would be a battle." "It is always a battle," Lady Marsham said. "I am trying to make her into someone your court will not chew up and spit out." "The court will adapt," Alexander replied. "If anyone needs lessons, it is them." Emily dipped a curtsy, trying to remember the angle Lady Marsham had drilled into her. "Your Highness," she said. Alexander's eyes warmed. "How many times must I tell you to call me Alexander?" he said. "At least 10 more, I think," she answered. "Say 20, Lady Marsham muttered. "She is stubborn." "To my advantage," Alexander said. "May I borrow your pupil, Lady Marsham?" "For how long?" the older woman asked. "A walk in the garden," he said. "No more. She needs air, and I need not to be in that council chamber for a little while longer." Lady Marsham eyed him, then nodded. "Very well," she said. "But no running, no climbing, no talking of anything that will make her forehead crease. That line is becoming permanent." Emily touched her brow self-consciously. Alexander laughed. "I will try to be soothing," he said. "You do not know how," Lady Marsham replied dryly. "Off with you both." They walked through quieter corridors, out into a sheltered garden that lay between 2 wings of the palace. The afternoon was mild. A few early flowers showed at the edges of the beds. Emily relaxed as soon as the fresh air touched her face. "I could breathe more easily in the dump than in these halls sometimes," she admitted. "I could not," Alexander said. "But I understand you mean well." She smiled. "How goes the council?" she asked. "Lady Marsham says your forehead is worse than mine." He groaned softly. "They argue," he said. "Sir William tries to keep them civil. Mr. Alden pricks them with questions. The inquiry into Lord Ashcombe's night journey has turned up enough letters to weave a tapestry." "Letters?" she asked. "Notes," he said. "Careless lines to men in the city. Requests for assurances and arrangements. Nothing so direct as an order, but enough to show he pulled more strings than he admitted." "And what will they do with him?" she asked. "Send him away," Alexander said. "Properly this time. Not simply to sit in his country house and sulk, but with restrictions. He will have land, comfort, and no power." "That sounds like mercy," Emily said. "It is," he answered. "I do not want revenge. I want him unable to touch anything important again." "And Stanton?" she asked. Alexander's mouth quirked. "Already drifting to a foreign embassy," he said. "Men like him always find another court to flatter. The king cannot keep him near without inviting trouble, but to throw him into disgrace entirely would stir up more noise than it soothes. So he will bow to someone else instead." Emily nodded slowly. "And the guards?" she asked. "The ones who rode with you that night?" His face sobered. "They were found alive," he said. "They remember being given a stop order outside the city. They say a man with palace seals told them to change carriages. That another coach would take me on, and they were to return by a side road." "They did not question this?" Emily asked. "They are trained not to," he said. "They fear disobedience more than confusion." "That must change." "Will it?" she asked. "If I have breath enough," he said. "I cannot let servants be punished for trusting the commands they are drilled to obey. It will be better to change how commands are given." "You speak like a king already," she said. He made a face. "I speak like a man who has had time to think while sitting through meetings," he said. "If I must endure them, I will at least sharpen something in them." They strolled along the path, their steps falling into a comfortable rhythm. "Tell me what troubles you," he said after a moment. She glanced at him. "Why do you think something troubles me?" "Because you chew your lip like that," he said. "You did it whenever we heard boots near the shelter." She stopped chewing at once. "It is nothing," she said. He waited. She sighed. "There are whispers," she said. "I hear them when I pass. I know I am not meant to, but I have ears." "What do they say?" he asked quietly. "That I am a passing fancy," she said. "That you will tire of your gratitude. That the king will see reason and marry you to someone with richer parents and better manners. That I am being entertained for now, because you nearly died, and no one dares cross you in the first flush of your return." His hands clenched at his sides. "Who says this?" he demanded. "Everyone and no one," she said. "Ladies in corners, gentlemen in doorways, even some servants, though they whisper more kindly. They do not wish me harm. They simply think this cannot last." "And what do you think?" he asked. She picked a leaf from a shrub, turning it between her fingers. I do not understand how it can," she said. "I sit in rooms I do not know how to sit in. I learn when to speak and when to fold my hands. You go to councils where they talk of treaties and coin and fields I have never seen. We live different days, even under the same roof." "Do you want to leave?" he asked. Her head snapped up. "No," she said. Then, lower, "Not if the only way to leave is to leave you." He exhaled slowly. "Then we will find a way," he said. "I cannot promise it will be quick. My father moves cautiously now. The kingdom is unsettled. There are those who would use any decision I make to stir up unrest. He worries that if I marry you now too suddenly, it will give them a banner to rally under." "I do not wish to bring you trouble," she said. "You have already brought me trouble," he replied. "The good kind. The sort that forces a man to become who he was meant to be. I will not give that up to please men who fear change." She looked down again. "I am afraid," she admitted. "Not of you. Not even of them. I'm afraid of hoping. The more they teach me to walk their way, the more it will hurt if I am told to go back to the dump and pretend I never saw any of this." "You will not be told that," he said. "You do not know that," she whispered. He stepped closer, so near she could see the faint shadow of stubble on his jaw. "I know myself," he said, "and I know my father better than I once did. He has seen what nearly losing me feels like. He has seen you. He may hesitate, he may fret, but I do not think he will forbid what he now understands keeps his son standing." "You sound certain," she said. "I am determined," he replied. "Certainty is a luxury. Determination I can afford." She laughed softly. "You and your words," she said. "They are all I can wield today," he answered. A bell rang in the distance. "That is the king's summons," he sighed. Another discussion, this time about the dumps. "The dumps?" she repeated. He smiled. "You have told me enough about them to make them impossible to ignore," he said. "Sir William and Mr. Alden agree. We will propose new work, safer sorting places, fairer pay, less filth under everyone's feet. If the kingdom insists on throwing things away, it must at least treat those who gather them with care." "You remember," she murmured. "I listen," he said, "especially to you." He took her hand for a brief, warm moment. "Trust me a little longer," he said. "And if your hope falters, borrow mine." She squeezed his fingers. "I will try," she said. He left her in the garden, his steps lengthening as he crossed the lawn. She watched him go, then turned her face to the patch of sky visible between the roofs. "Just a little longer," she whispered. Time passed. Days turned into weeks, then into months. Lessons continued. Emily learned which fork to use, which greeting to offer, which titles to remember. She forgot some of them, and Lady Marsham clicked her tongue, then laughed, then made her practice again. She walked with her back straight now. She no longer flinched at every unfamiliar sound. She made mistakes and did not break apart over them. She also walked in places the court did not expect her to. With Alexander's blessing, she visited a workyard where scrap was sorted under cover instead of in the open. She watched women hand old cloth to men who weighed it fairly. She saw boys like Tom, only a little less thin, carrying bundles under the eye of overseers who had been told very clearly that cruelty was no longer to be tolerated. "This is only a beginning," Mr. Alden said, standing beside her one afternoon, leaning on his cane. "But beginnings matter." At night in her small chamber in the north wing, she would look at the scrap of canvas she had kept from her old shelter. It hung on the wall now, a bit of roughness against smooth plaster. Sometimes she would touch it before bed, as if to remind herself of both who she had been and who she was becoming. Still, the whispers never entirely quieted. They changed shape. Some turned from scorn to curiosity, some to grudging respect. A few hardened into resentment. "Have you heard?" one lady murmured to another as Emily passed. "They say the prince has refused 3 suggested brides." "They say he has refused to even meet them," the other replied. "He spends all his time with tutors and that girl from the heaps." "Love is charming," the first said, until it asks a kingdom to redraw its maps. Emily kept walking. One evening, months after her arrival, Lady Marsham came into her chamber without knocking. Her cheeks were pink, her eyes bright. "Stand up," she said. "Let me look at you." Emily, who had been mending a seam, obeyed. "What is it?" she asked. "Has someone spilled soup in the king's lap? Did Tom sneak into the palace?" She smiled at the thought. "Worse," Lady Marsham said, "or better, depending on your view." Emily's heart stuttered. "What?" she whispered. "The king has made up his mind," Lady Marsham said. "He called me to his study. He asked about you, about your progress, about your heart." "My heart," Emily echoed. "I told him it was unreasonably large," Lady Marsham said, "and uncommonly honest." He sighed, rubbed his forehead, and said, "Then perhaps my son has chosen well, even if he has not chosen wisely by the world's measures." Emily's knees wobbled. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means," Lady Marsham said, "that tomorrow in the Great Hall there will be an announcement, and you must have a dress that looks less like practice and more like a statement." "A statement of what?" Emily asked, nearly breathless. "That you are not going anywhere," Lady Marsham said. "That you belong here. That you are to be, if you accept it, the future princess of this somewhat baffled kingdom." Emily sank back onto the bed. "I must sit," she said. "You may sit for this moment," Lady Marsham said briskly. "Tomorrow you will stand up in front of more eyes than you have ever known existed." "He told the king," Emily murmured. "Alexander told him." "He has told everyone by now," Lady Marsham replied. "He is not subtle, your prince. It is both his charm and his nuisance." Emily's chest felt full and light and fragile all at once. "And if I say no?" she asked quietly. Lady Marsham blinked. "Do you wish to?" she asked. "I do not know how to be a princess," Emily said. "I know how to pull a barrow. I know how to sort scrap. I know how to see when someone is lying because their eyes slide away. I do not know how to carry a title without dropping it." "Do you love him?" Lady Marsham asked. The answer rose before Emily could think. "Yes," she said. "I do." "Then the rest you can learn," Lady Marsham said. "Or you can trip over it and stand up again. That is what most of us do, only with better shoes." Emily laughed, a wet, shaky sound. "I am afraid," she said. "Good," Lady Marsham replied. "Bravery without fear is only carelessness. Now let me see your shoulders. If you are to stand at his side, you must not look as if you expect someone to strike you." Emily straightened. The next day, the great hall filled again. This time there were fewer frowns. Curiosity pressed in from every side. Even some of the servants found excuses to linger near the doors. Emily stood behind a pillar near the entrance, dressed in a gown of soft cream with a simple ribbon at the waist. Her hair was pinned up, but one curl refused to be tamed. Lady Marsham had sighed and let it stay. "Let them see you are human," she had said. On the platform, the king took his seat with more ease than before. The inquiry into Ashcombe and the long weeks of careful politics had tired him, but also seemed to have lifted something heavy from his shoulders. Alexander stood at his right hand, his back straight, his face calm, but alight. Mr. Alden and Sir William flanked the platform. A cluster of nobles stood nearby, some eager, some wary. The herald banged his staff. "His Majesty King Robert," he announced, "will address the court." The murmur died. The king rose, leaning on the carved arm of his chair. "My friends," he said, "and those who wish to be." A ripple of laughter eased the tension. "We have passed through a troubled season. My son vanished and returned. Those I trusted proved less firm than I had hoped. Our people have been shaken by rumors and uncertainty." He paused, looking slowly around the hall. "We have learned from this," he went on. "We have set new guards around our journeys. We have given more honest men a voice in our councils. We have begun to see corners of this kingdom we had left too long in shadow." His gaze flicked toward Emily's pillar. She felt it settle on her like a weight and a blessing. "Today," he said, "we take another step. One that will cause talk, I do not doubt. Some of you may be displeased, some of you will pretend not to be and grumble later. I advise you to save your breath. The decision is made." A nervous chuckle scattered like dropped beads. "My son has chosen the woman he wishes to stand beside him," the king said, "not as a passing fancy, not as an indulgence of gratitude, as a partner, as the mother of future heirs, as the one with whom he will share all the burdens and small joys of rulership. He turned to Alexander. "Is this still your wish?" he asked, loud enough for all to hear. Alexander's answer was clear. "Yes, father," he said, "with all my heart." "Then let her stand forth," the king said. "Emily Carter, come here." For a heartbeat, Emily could not move. Then Lady Marsham's hand nudged her gently between the shoulder blades. "Glide," she whispered, "and if you cannot, at least walk as if your feet belong to you." Emily stepped out from behind the pillar. The hall seemed to stretch, faces blurred at the edges. She focused on Alexander at the far end, on the steady warmth in his eyes. She walked. Her hem did not catch. Her shoulders stayed back. When she reached the foot of the platform, she curtsied, not as gracefully as the ladies around her, but without falling over. "Emily Carter," the king said, "you have been ragpicker, rescuer, witness, and more honest than many born to silk. My son wishes to make you his wife. The court wishes to know if you consent." The eyes of the kingdom rested on her. She heard her own voice, small and clear. "I do, your majesty," she said. "If he truly wishes it, and if I may be allowed to be myself, and not a shadow of someone they would prefer." A sharp intake of breath ran through the hall at her boldness. The king's eyes crinkled. "Shadows are plentiful here," he said. "We have no need of more. You will be yourself, Emily. That is why you are here." He looked at Alexander. "Ask her properly," he said. "We must have some formality, or the scribes will have nothing to write about." Laughter loosened something in Emily's chest. Alexander came down the steps, each movement measured, not by courtly training this time, but by feeling. He stopped before her, close enough that she could see the slight tremor in his hand. He did not kneel. That would have sent half the court into fainting fits. But he inclined his head to her, making something new in the space between them. "Emily," he said, voice low but carrying, "the world sees you as a girl pulled from the rubbish. I see you as the woman who pulled me from it. I have nothing to offer you that you have not already given me in cleaner form. Honesty, courage, a heart that does not bend to anyone's comfort but the truth's. But I offer what I can. My name, my hand, my stubborn will, and whatever years this life grants me." He took a breath. "Will you marry me knowing there will be days of wait and whispers, and knowing that every one of those days I will be grateful you stand at my side?" Her eyes filled. "You speak as if you are not the prince," she said softly. "I am also a man," he replied. "I hope to be a good prince. I know I am a man who loves you." She laughed through her tears. "Yes," she said, "I will marry you. I will argue with you, and remind you, and stand beside you until you grow tired of me and beyond." "I will never grow tired of you," he whispered. The king cleared his throat loudly. "Before we drown in sentiment," he said, "we must complete the formalities." Some weeks later, on a clear morning that smelled of new leaves and possibility, Emily stood in a chapel she had never dared dream of entering. The ceremony was not grand compared to some in the palace's history. Alexander had insisted. The walls were not draped in costly fabrics. The flowers came from the palace gardens arranged by the very gardeners who grew them. The guests included, at Alexander's pointed request, not only nobles and foreign envoys, but also representatives from the city districts, the head of a guild, a schoolmistress, the overseer of the new sorting yard, even Mr. Brooks, who looked as if he had wandered into a painting by mistake. Emily's dress was simple by royal standards, cream with delicate stitching at the sleeves. Around her wrist, hidden under the cuff, she had tied the small ribbon she had once found in the dump, and kept for no reason she understood. Alexander wore a dark coat with a pin at his collar, a tiny scrap of cloth, neatly folded and sewn in place. The rag she had used to bind his hand the day she found him. "You kept it," she whispered when she saw it. "I keep what saves me," he said. They stood before the altar, hands joined. The priest spoke words about vows, about duty and companionship, about storms weathered together. Alexander repeated his lines with steady conviction. When it was Emily's turn, her voice shook at first, then strengthened as she spoke the promises she had never imagined making. To stand with him in hardship and in joy, to tell him truth even when it hurt, to share her strength when his faltered. "So you may kiss your bride," the priest said, a little softer than tradition, as if remembering the young man he had once been. Alexander lifted Emily's hand to his lips first, pressing a quiet promise there. Then he bent and kissed her brow, gentle and sure, a touch full of gratitude and something fiercer, a claim that asked rather than demanded. The chapel seemed to exhale. Applause rose, scattered and then full. Lady Marsham dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. "Mr." Alden smiled so broadly he looked younger by 10 years. Sir William clapped with genuine joy. Tom, smuggled into the back with Mr. Brooks, who had softened around the eyes in recent months, cheered loudest. Outside, in the courtyard, people gathered. News had spread. They could not all fit into the chapel, but they wanted to see. A prince and a rag picker, the stories said. Perhaps the world had not turned upside down, but it had certainly tilted. Emily and Alexander stepped out together. The sun caught his hair, her simple veil, the pale stone of the palace behind them. For a moment the sight was so bright that Emily had to squint. "Are you ready?" he asked quietly. "No," she said honestly. "But I am willing." He laughed. "That will do," he said. They walked down the steps, through a path opened by guards. Some people bowed, some curtsied, some simply stared. A few smiled with something like pride, as if her story made their own burdens lighter. Emily caught sight of a woman near the back holding a child. The woman's skirts were patched, her hands were red from work, yet she stood in the palace courtyard, watching her. Their eyes met. The woman gave a small nod, as if to say, "Remember." Emily did. As the days that followed settled into a new kind of life, she did not forget the weight of bones in her basket, or the sting of Mr. Brooks's early words, or the feel of Alexander's limp body under her grip as she dragged him from the refuse. She did not forget that the kingdom was bigger than marble floors. Now, when she walked those floors, she spoke in councils about the places where smoke still clung to people's clothes. She asked questions that made ministers shift. She listened more than she spoke, then chose her words carefully, remembering how it felt to have no voice at all. At night, when the day's duties were done and the candles burned low, she and Alexander would sit near a window, looking out over the city. "Where is the dump from here?" she asked once. He pointed. "There," he said, "near that curve of smoke, smaller than before. Cleaner, I hope." "Tom says the workyard pays regular now," she said. "He grumbles, but he grumbles with bread in his hands. That is different." Alexander smiled. "You have pulled more than one person from rubbish," he said. "So have you," she replied. He leaned his shoulder against hers. "Do you ever wish," he asked, "that you had walked away that morning?" She shook her head at once. "No," she said, "even when I'm afraid, even when I feel lost here, never that." "Nor do I," he said, "though I regret that you had to risk so much." "If I had not," she said, "we would both still be alone." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Bells tolled in the distance. Somewhere, a child laughed. Somewhere else, a woman scolded. Life went on, messy and stubborn. Emily rested her hand over Alexander's, feeling the steady heat of his skin. She had not been born for crowns or councils. She had been born, like everyone else, into a world that did not ask her if she wished to come. She had been pushed to the edges, made to stand on rubbish and act as if it were normal. Now, by a series of choices, small, frightened, stubborn choices, she had stepped into the center of a different circle. Not to shine, not to dazzle, but to remember. And as the narrator's voice would say to anyone listening, years later and far away, sometimes the world throws away things it ought to treasure. Sometimes it tries to bury what makes it uncomfortable. But every so often someone like Emily stoops, looks more closely, and refuses to leave what she has found in the dirt. When that happens, not only two lives change, but the shape of a kingdom shifts, quietly, toward something kinder. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you like the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories, full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.